There's a moment in everyone's life, quiet, almost invisible, where everything starts to fall apart. Not because of failure, not because of bad luck, but because of delay. You wake up with plans, big ones, life-changing ones. But then you check your phone. Just 5 minutes. Then messages. Then scrolling. Then something urgent. Then something easy. And before you realize it, the day is gone. But the real danger? It's not that you wasted a day, it's that you trained your brain to avoid what matters most. This is where the idea behind Eat That Frog hits like a punch in the gut. Because the frog isn't a task, it's the thing you're avoiding, the one that actually changes your life. Imagine this. 2 people wake up in the same city, same opportunities, same 24 hours. One spends the morning doing easy things, emails, small tasks, distractions disguised as productivity. The other sits down, stares at the hardest, most uncomfortable task, and begins. No motivation, no perfect mood, just action. A year later, their lives look completely different. Why? Because success isn't built on what's easy. It's built on what's avoided. Let me tell you a story. There's a young man, let's call him Arjun. Arjun had dreams, big ones. He wanted financial freedom, respect, a life beyond routine. But every day he made a silent deal with himself. I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. Next week became next month. And slowly something dangerous happened. His dreams didn't disappear, they became heavier, scarier, harder to start. Because the longer you delay something important, the bigger it feels in your mind. This is the first truth most people never realize. The task isn't actually hard. Your resistance to it is. Here's what most people get wrong. They think productivity is about doing more. It's not. It's about doing what matters first. Think about it. You can be busy all day and still feel empty. Why? Because deep down, you didn't move forward, you just moved around. That's the trap. And the world rewards movement. Notifications, replies, activity. But your life? It only changes when you face the uncomfortable. Now pause for a second and ask yourself something honestly. What is the one thing you've been avoiding lately? Not the small stuff. Not the easy tasks. I'm talking about that one thing. The one that makes you slightly uncomfortable just thinking about it. That's your frog. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Every day you delay it, you're silently voting against your future. Let's go deeper. Why do we avoid these tasks? It's not laziness, it's psychology. Your brain is designed to protect you from discomfort, and growth feels like discomfort. So your mind tricks you. It says, do something easier first. Get ready. Wait for the right mood. But that right mood, it rarely comes because action doesn't follow motivation. Motivation follows action. Arjun didn't understand this at first. He kept waiting to feel ready. One day, frustrated, he tried something different. Instead of planning his day around what felt easy, he asked a different question. What is the one thing that would make today meaningful? Not busy, meaningful. And he did that first. No negotiation, no delay. At first, it felt painful, like lifting a weight his mind didn't want to carry. But something strange happened. After finishing that one difficult task, everything else felt lighter, easier, almost effortless. That's when he realized something powerful. The hardest task of your day carries the biggest emotional weight. Remove it early, and you free your entire mind. Now think about your own life again. How many times have you carried that mental weight all day? You wake up knowing what you should do, but you delay it, and all day it sits in the background, quiet, but heavy. It drains your energy, your focus, your confidence. Because unfinished important work creates invisible stress. Here's another truth most people ignore. Clarity creates power. Confusion creates delay. If you don't clearly define what matters, you'll always choose what's easy. That's why high performers don't start their day randomly. They decide in advance what matters most, not 10 things. 1. Because if everything is important, nothing is. Let me challenge you with something uncomfortable. What if your problem isn't lack of time, but lack of decision? Because once you decide what matters, the excuses start to look weak, and your priorities become visible. There's another layer to this: energy. Not all hours are equal. Your mind is sharpest at certain times. And what do most people do? They waste those hours on low-value work. Imagine using your best energy on your worst priorities. That's not just inefficient, that's self-sabotage. Arjun started protecting his mornings, not for emails, not for social media, but for his biggest challenge. And slowly, his identity began to change. He stopped seeing himself as someone who procrastinates and started seeing himself as someone who finishes. That shift, it's everything. Because your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your future. Let's talk about fear, because underneath procrastination, there's often fear. Fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of starting something you might not finish, so you delay. Because as long as you don't start, you don't have to face the outcome. But here's the truth. Avoiding the task doesn't remove the fear. It feeds it. Action shrinks fear. Delay grows it. There's a powerful moment that happens when you start something difficult. The first 5 minutes feel heavy. Your mind resists. You want to quit. But if you push through, something shifts. Momentum kicks in. And suddenly, you're in it. That's why starting is everything. Not finishing. Starting. Because once you begin, your brain stops fighting you. Now imagine building a life around this principle. Every day, you face what matters most first. You remove the biggest resistance early. You build momentum, confidence, clarity. Over time, this compounds, not in a dramatic, overnight way, but in a quiet, unstoppable way. That's how real success works. Let me bring you back to you, not Arjun, not theory. You. What would happen if tomorrow you did just one thing differently? You woke up, ignored the noise, and attacked your most important task first. No waiting, no overthinking, just action. Would your life change instantly? No, but something more important would change. Your direction. Because success isn't built in a day. It's built in decisions, small, repeated, uncomfortable decisions. And most people? They lose not because they're incapable, but because they avoid the very actions that would change everything. Here's something people don't like hearing. Discipline is more reliable than motivation. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is a system, and systems win. Every time. Because they don't depend on how you feel. They depend on what you do. Arjun didn't become extraordinary overnight. He just stopped negotiating with himself. That's it. No drama, no big transformation. Just a quiet decision. The hardest thing gets done first. And over time, that simple rule changed everything. Now let's go deeper into a subtle truth. Every time you delay something important, you weaken your self-trust. And every time you follow through, you strengthen it. So this isn't just about productivity, it's about identity. Because confidence doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. Keeping promises to yourself, even when it's hard. There's also a hidden reward in all this. Freedom. Not the kind you imagine. Not doing whatever you want. But the freedom of a clear mind. A mind not constantly reminding you of unfinished work. A mind that feels light because it knows it handled what mattered. Let me ask you something real. At the end of your life, do you think you'll regret doing hard things early or avoiding them for comfort? Because comfort feels good now, but it costs you later. Discomfort feels hard now, but it pays you later. So here's the shift. Stop asking, what do I feel like doing? Start asking what matters most. And then do that first. Not perfectly, not completely. Just begin. And when your mind resists, because it will, remind yourself of this. You're not fighting the task. You're fighting your own patterns. Patterns built over years, and they don't change with intention. They change with action. Let me leave you with this image. Every morning, you're given a plate. On it sits one ugly, uncomfortable frog. Ignore it, and it stays there all day, growing heavier, louder, harder. Eat it first, and the rest of your day becomes lighter, clearer, stronger. Most people will hear this, agree, and do nothing. That's reality. But a very small number, will take this seriously. They'll act, and their lives will slowly, quietly transform. So the question isn't, do you understand this? The question is, will you do it tomorrow morning when no one is watching? Because that moment, that quiet, invisible decision, that's where your future is decided.